Dennis, obviously the obvious question to start with, how did it all come about?
Well, my brother-in-law came up with the idea, Michael. He got hold of one of the floating golf balls, thought about it for a while, found out where they were made, and then came up with the idea of Aqua golf for everyone.
Now, the ball itself, the compound and whatever, it's not dissimilar from a normal golf ball, is it?
No, Michael, they hit just like a normal golf ball. There's a little bit of distance loss. When we first got the balls manufactured over in America, we sent them to the American PGA and they approved the ball. So the dimple formation and weight of the ball complies with all the PGA recommendations.
Now, this is unique to Australia?
It's the very first one in Australia, Michael. We're hoping to set up others around Australia. We're looking at other sites in New South Wales now. And this is a testing ground for us. It's all very new and very exciting.
Where's the main interest coming from? Just the people that use the village itself, or are you getting some keen golfers from Cessnock coming out and using it as a driving range?
Well, the first initial setup was that the local people, the tourists coming here to the village for picnics and barbecues. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, we're having a lot of golfers come down from Cessnock and Maitland and Newcastle to practice. It's an ideal way to practice the golf. The ball does hit, as I said, very well. And the incentive of a few cash prizes doesn't go astray either.
Yeah, now tell us about those.
Well, we've got targets out on the dam, and they range in price from $20 for a hole-in-one to $100 for a hole-in-one, plus the bullseye, and when somebody hits that, we'll give them a free bucket of balls and they can start all over again.
Now, tell me it's true. I don't really believe this. You're actually going to put a real green out in the middle of the dam.
Exactly right, Michael. We're getting some engineers working on the problem now. We'll have 2 or 3 floating greens that people can aim at, which will make it look pretty spectacular out there.
Now, you're a former Queenslander, coming down to cockroach territory, of course. How's the reaction been now that you've, in actual fact, won the 3rd State of Origin? You getting any flack out here?
I did after the first 2 games. So I was very upset about the second game. I thought we deserved a draw, but I got my own back in the 3rd. The Queenslanders, they pulled themselves back together.
Dennis, for you and Judy, how's the hospitality of New South Wales been so far?
Marvellous. Cessnock and the Colburn in this area is just tremendous. The people have been very friendly, helped us tremendously in getting started up. All the local businesses have got behind us, with helping us with purchases and that sort of thing. We love it down here. It's tremendous.
Continuing on with the Aqua golf, I suppose the great thing when we have a look at the setup here is that, as obviously the ball floats, you don't have to really do a lot of picking up because the wind will actually blow it into the nets.
That's right, Michael. The wind is a big asset to us here. The days when there isn't any wind can be a problem. We have up to 10 or 20,000 balls out at a time. The wind does blow them all into one corner of the dam, and it's just a matter of going round, scooping them up. Perhaps takes an hour and a half on the busiest of days. When there's no wind, it takes several hours, and it gets very hard.
I bet you see some interesting swings out here.
I've seen some of the best golfers in the Hunter Valley, and I've seen some of the worst. We had a young man here the other day. He picked up a $50 cash prize. He'd never held a golf club before, and about 10 minutes after that, he followed it up and threw the golf club in the water. So we were down a golf club, and he was up $50, but he had fun.
When are you going to invent the floating golf club?
I'm working on that now. A gentleman around here is trying to work out a little tap we can put in the end of them so that when they do go in the water, the handle will stay floating. It's 30 feet out there, and when they go in, they stay in there. It's very hard to find.
All roads led to Terrigal as the Beta Breakers Fun Run coincided with festivities to mark Pepper's first year of operation. 1,200 runners of all ages foot-slogged the 11-kilometre course from Gosford to Terrigal. First over the finish line with a time just over 33 minutes was Newcastle runner David Forbes.
Today was pretty good. I felt fairly comfortable, although the hills at the end make it a little bit tough as usual. I was pretty pleased with the result though.
Terrigal greeted the runners with a carnival atmosphere and charity fair. There were beach games for the young and hardy, and some stall holders welcomed a cold breeze. And lots of orders for wind chimes?
Well, we're selling out fast, put it that way.
The latest cartoon craze, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, kept face painters busy.
I think Ninja Turtles will be in. I think they've taken over from Spider-Man.
Peppers on Sea opened its doors for a glimpse at the good life. Guided tours, wine tasting, art and fashion shows kept many entertained. But some of the guests apparently couldn't wait to get out. Members of the Gosford SES showed wide-eyed onlookers just how far they'd go to avoid a hefty hotel tab. Today's game between Lakes and Waratah at Waratah Oval got underway in pouring rain. Lakes looked dangerous from the outset, with good breaks deep into Waratah's half. Waratah fought back with some solid attacking that drove Lakes well back toward their own try line. Waratah couldn't capitalise though through bad ball handling, and Lakes had run away with a lead of 22-12 at half-time. The second half brought more of the same, with Waratah improving their game but unable to pin Lakes, who sealed the day with a try at full time.
More than $300 million is spent on public health in the Hunter each year. Until now, government bureaucrats had sole responsibility how that money should be spent. But in a landmark case, doctors with the new John Hunter Hospital will be accountable for the dollars and cents.
In terms of the way the hospital is to be managed, they will be taking part in the decision-making process about how the dollars are to be spent and what they're to be spent on.
Professor Nicholas Saunders, chairman of medicine at the new hospital, admits this will create ethical problems for doctors who are trained to save lives, not money. Take the example of neonatal intensive care.
And we know that we can keep tiny, tiny babies alive. We also know that many of those babies are likely to have some impairment and disability later in life. Should we be spending our money resuscitating those tiny babies, or should we be spending our money on other parts of the community? Now, I don't have the answers to those questions, but what is needed is for the community to start thinking about them and help the healthcare providers reach some decisions about how the healthcare dollar should be spent.
Working within the constraints of a $100 million budget, John Hunter is planned to be open by next January, with 1,800 beds and a staff of 500. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The search vessel Saramoa left Townsville last Thursday in the hope of finding the 4 missing men. This morning, 900 kilometres east of Rockhampton, it picked up a hatch cover, a couple of soggy flares and a thong, believed to be from the Rock and Robin. In response to the find, the families of the men sent a long-range search plane with navigational equipment on board to the area. The families of the missing crew believe the men are still alive, almost a month after they disappeared during a voyage to Noumea. Grant Wiltshire, his son Robert, both of Brightwater near Morisset, Jeffrey Smith of Lake Munmora and Andrew Young of Sydney were last seen aboard a 10-man raft lowered to them by an RAAF helicopter just before the Rock and Robin went down in high seas. Despite the find, the federal government says it will not resume the official search for the men, which was called off just 3 days after rescuers lost sight of the raft. Meanwhile, the opposition has called for an inquiry into the initial search, which was coordinated by the National Sea Safety Centre in Canberra. The families say that with the help of public donations, they will continue their own private search, confident more than ever before that the 4 men are alive. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
As the earthquake inquest moved into its 3rd day, tensions between the rescue services slowly emerged. 2 fire brigade officers who were among the first at the scene of the Workers' Club took the stand today. They told how they worked for an hour and a half freeing victims from the rubble. But then a police order came that all but those directly involved in rescue should leave the building. Firefighter Roger McAvor said he remained inside for a further 20 minutes until he freed a patient. He then left the club in response to the police order. His colleague Brian Hitchcock said one unit suspended a search and rescue operation because of the police directive. The court heard how ambulance paramedics were evacuated from the club as they treated victims trapped in the rubble. The coroner was told rescue efforts were suspended because of fears an aftershock would topple a huge concrete slab. Maureen Polkinghorn was one of those still trapped when rescue workers evacuated. She remembers hearing them talking about moving out. I was quite in agreement with their ideas, she said. I thought, why risk their lives when they didn't know if anybody else was alive? There was evidence today too about the use of heat-seeking thermal image cameras. Detective Sergeant Jim Young told how police warned fire officers not to use the equipment as there were too many people in the basement. But Coroner Kevin Waller cut short argument about the use of the rescue equipment, saying it was not something he intended to put a lot of time into in this hearing. The inquest continues tomorrow, with fire and ambulance officers expected to take the stand. Leslie Robinson for NBN News.
While it arrived today from Melbourne in the back of a hired van, it is nonetheless much loved. Carefully wrapped in swaddling clothes, the little baby was gently lifted into the performance hall and placed on its cradle. While there are few people who list the harpsichord as their favourite instrument, and even fewer are specialist players, it does have its devotees. One in particular is Peter Watchorn, a native Novocastrian who graduated from the con in the mid-70s. Peter is now a consultant with the Hubbard Harpsichord Company in Boston in the United States, where this baby was born. In case you don't know, harpsichords have a harp just like a piano, but the strings are plucked rather than struck. This new one, joining two others already at the con, is in the French 17th century Tascan style and assembled by Alistair McAllister in Melbourne. After tuning, Peter Watchorn demonstrated his artistry and that of the manufacturer. He'll feature during the con's Keyboard Festival in late August, appearing with another notable harpsichordist, Anthony Jennings from New Zealand. Peter plays like this.
The Gnomes were placed in this low-security cell in the heart of the Newcastle police station. They'd earlier been found loitering outside the council chambers, and when they refused to move, violence broke out. Several Gnomes were injured in the clash, which onlookers described as animalistic. They were subjected to rigorous questioning about a leafy green substance which was found on them and about their planned demonstration.
And what were you doing outside the council chambers this morning?
They maintained a stony silence. Their determination left police frustrated.
I must say the group's unity has been rock solid.
No charges have yet been laid, but the Gnomes remain in custody. No bail has been set, but police say they won't be released until their original guardian comes forward and guarantees their good behaviour in the future. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
There's no doubt the standard of junior tennis right throughout Australia is on the improve, and tournaments such as the New South Wales Country Closed Junior titles further enhance that development. More than 300 players from as far away as Lismore in the north and Bega in the south will battle it out in 3 divisions from under 12s to 16s. This tournament will be followed by the Open Country titles, which commence on Friday. Organiser Fenton Cool is reasonably pleased with the numbers.
We're not as pleased as we probably would have been with the numbers in the senior tournament. It was switched 2 years ago to a combined junior and senior tournament, and it's slightly disappointing still, the numbers, but on the whole they are up on last year's figures anyway.
The old post office residence in Lehman Street, Nelson Bay, is surrounded by parkland. Residents of the Bay have fought for years to have the site rezoned as open space to join Apex Park. The federal government offered to sell the site to Port Stephens Shire Council for $300,000, but when they refused, the site was put up for auction. Last month it was sold privately for $270,000 to Sydney-based company Lublana and Wabbit. Under current zoning laws, there is little the site can be used for. It cannot be developed as a motel or hotel or for residential purposes. Although no development application has yet been lodged with Council, residents say they are strongly opposed to any form of development.
No, they do not. Well, it's clearly observed today they do not want development on this site. We can have developments over on this side, but why should we have it to interfere with our view of our bay?
At today's public meeting, it was decided to ask Trades Hall Council to place a green ban on the site. Although it has yet to make a final decision, Trades Hall is confident that with resident backing, the site will be green banned. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
The council has paid nearly $1.5 million for the Best and Less building in the heart of Raymond Terrace. The chain store will continue to operate in the building on a 10-year lease. The council expects to recoup its investment over 7 years. Shire President Bruce Mackenzie says it could be the first of a number of commercial ventures.
We've got to get with it. Local government in 1990, with their rating income and grants from the council, is just not enough money to go around. So council's got to get into entrepreneurial activity to get enough money to meet the people's needs. We've got to keep our eyes open for income-producing properties, developing land in light industrial subdivisions, which we're doing 2 now, one at Madawi and one at Salamander.
A stone's throw from its latest acquisition, the council will build its new $6 million chambers. Located behind the courthouse, the council-owned land is presently used as a nursery. The move comes after almost a decade of debate over where the new headquarters should be. Built in 1963 for a staff of 56, the present offices house a workforce 6 times that figure. Planners and administrators occupy demountable buildings, while the public gallery gives way to staff computer training. Council will view plans for the new building by the end of the month and hopes to move in within 18 months. The existing chambers are still seen as a valuable asset.
This building we're in now, whilst we're going to build a new one, I would hate it forever to go out of the hands or the ownership of the Port Stephens Shire Council, because it can be redeveloped. It's in a good top spot, a top location in the town, and I would like to see it developed into a retail come office development in future years for an income producing asset.
The Hunter Valley Training Company is a non-profit private organisation established in 1981. It's currently based outside Maitland, offering off-the-job practical training for metal and electrical trades. The company sees the new levy as a chance to help industry train its workforce. It's proposing to offer fee-for-service training in specialised modules tailored to suit industry. Already a module in auto electrics has been developed. Rochelle, who's training to be an electrician, has high praise for the course.
I'd never gone into that field before, so I found it really, really interesting.
On offer already are broad-based courses in metal trades, including specialised welding techniques. Electronics and word processing courses are in the pipeline. The new courses are expected to dovetail into the federal government's restructuring of awards, which calls for fewer classifications and greater multi-skilling. The training company also offers small business an alternative to the huge costs of internal training versus the cost of the levy, which may well be spent training somebody else's staff. The Hunter Valley Training Company is convinced this cost-effective training method will benefit both the workforce and business.
That we can provide structured training, and they're the words that the Commonwealth Government is using, and we will be available to undertake this training on behalf of a great company of employers around the Hunter region and also in the Penrith and western suburbs area of Sydney.
Overnight rain may have dampened the courts but had no effect on the high standard of teenage tennis. Yesterday's doubles team of Newcastle's Trudy Musgrave and Jodie Lynn from Lismore faced one another in the girls' 14 years decider. The left-handed Novocastrian started strongly under the watchful eye of coach and father Terry Musgrave, but a determined effort by the visitor earned her a 6-3, 6-2 win. In the boys' 14 years, Paul Summerside of Kiama beat Nathan Tuck of Wollongong in straight sets, but Tuck pushed the final set to 7-5. 16-year-old Stephen Crawford of Tumut powered to a 6-2, 6-4 win over Wagga's Tully Lister. 16-year-old Karen Anderson, also from Wagga, went down fighting with a second set tiebreaker against Rebecca Cable of Lithgow. The last local hopes were Dominic Cohen and Alison Skean in the 12 years final, but the competition again proved too strong. The country's senior championships start tomorrow.
It was back to school time at the Lake Macquarie Police Citizens Club today as highway patrol officers, RTA inspectors and truck operators learnt the pros and cons of tachographs. By October, they'll be compulsory in heavy vehicles over 13.9 tonnes.
The driver and the vehicle owner can prove any time the hours the vehicle was driven and the rest periods and the speeds the vehicle was driven at. So the owner of the vehicle and the driver can prove that they are complying with the law.
Police were impressed by what they saw and say the device should benefit owners, drivers and authorities alike.
It's not just for us to ferret out the cowboy drivers. I believe it is largely the responsibility of the heavy vehicle operator and the driver themselves.
But the operators aren't so sure. They say they agree with the concept but are worried about how it will be administered. Police insist they have nothing to worry about.
It is a fair instrument. It will have an equal advantage to the operator and to the driver. In other words, he will have a document in the shape of this card from the tachograph that he can take to court and will stand up in court